How to Read a Work of Art by Elizabeth Altus. So I have studied art history, and visiting museums is one of my absolute favorite things to do. So yes, this is a thing I can do well. But my first question to you is, can a piece of art be read? Allow yourself to think back to when you were learning how to read. You learned to identify objects and memorize their ascribed meanings. You then use these objects or letters to form words and then sentences. I would like to argue that the same can be done with art. Understanding a work of art is a form of reading. In this presentation, I will attempt to teach you how to observe a piece of art by breaking down its components. This will allow you to better understand why the artist created it in this specific way. So you can stand in front of a masterpiece and have more to say than, I like it, or, it's pretty. So hopefully I can guide you to make confident, accurate assumptions and derive meaning from a piece of art, just as you would a book. So the first thing that we need to discuss is what material or medium the artist is using. So here we have a painting that is on canvas, and we can see from the thick swipes of oil paint up in the top that this is oil on canvas. Next, we have pastel on paper, and then charcoal on paper. There's also glass, as in stained glass in Saint Chapelle. We see bronze in this equestrian statue of Marcus Aurelius. There's also marble in this sculpture of the Nike of Samothrace, and bronze in this Rodin. We also have thread in this medieval tapestry. So we need to talk about color, but I kind of want us to avoid saying color because it's a very generic and vague way of talking about a huge element in art. So instead of saying color, I want us to say hue. Hue is the color itself, and I've even heard it referred to as the variety of color. So say red hue, blue hue, but honestly in this presentation I probably will use both words. So the next is value. So value is the brightness or the intensity of the hue. So we have vivid, deep colors versus pale, pastel colors. It is a change in value. So it could all be the same hue, but look very different by just having a different value. We also have categories of colors, and I'm sure you all remember learning about primary colors of red, blue, and yellow. Those really are the base of all colors in art. But we also have complementary colors, which sadly no, is not colors that say nice things about other colors. They are actually the ones that are on the opposite side of the color wheel. So we have red and green, purple and yellow, and blue and orange. So these ones, when they're put on a canvas next to each other, really almost vibrate with color. Or hue. I love it. So now that we have kind of an understanding of color, we're going to move on and be able to talk more intellectually about a work like this. So this is Kandinsky's A Composition number 7. So yeah, probably about 5 minutes ago, most of us would have looked at it and said, wow, that's a lot of color. But now when we have these terms in mind, let's try and talk about more than just what color, more than just, okay, how does it make you feel? I want you to look and say, okay, what hues do I see? I see a lot of primary colors. I see a lot of blues. I see a lot of reds. I see a lot of yellows. It's like, okay, well, did the artist choose to put complementary colors together? I would say overall on this one, not too much. We see a lot of reds and purples next to each other. In the top left corner, we have orange and yellows. So he is choosing a wide range of colors, but he's not putting the complementary colors together. We also have value here. So we have that really dark blue in the middle. We have some really dark, punchy reds. But down in the bottom and up in a little bit in the middle area on the right side, we have a light value. So those are those ones that come across almost pastel, even though this is paint. So next thing that we should discuss about art is emotion. So emotion comes through in art. So in this one, it's this There, well, loaded. Okay. So Degas is painting this one. This is actually pastel, and we see this woman yawning. So this has been a long day of work. We have the woman beside her is ironing. So that's the little iron that they would put in the fire and bring back out. And now she's pressing the cloth. So we can tell this has been a long day. She's tired, and all of that emotion comes through on her face. But I want you to look at this one. Now, hopefully you all have seen this painting by Edvard Munch. It's just The Scream. So he is also has his mouth open, also has a hand on his head, and it's almost the same posture, but it's a very different emotion. So this one is, the main subject is on a bridge, and we have water down below, and then the sky is a sunset, but it almost looks as if we've transported to Jupiter. So that's that color coming in, that it really does show emotion. So we have Degas' painting is really soft and pastels, and of the value is really a light value. It's not that high intensity color as in Munch's, which that comes across with emotion. So color and emotion really are joined together. But I'm just going to say on a side note, I really have felt both of these emotions in the past 3 weeks in this program. So next, I want to talk about shapes and flow. So artists are very deliberate on how they set up their compositions. They're not just looking at the real world and tracing it. So first, the colors of this work. It's all mostly white. So we do have a couple different hues of white. We see on the right side that, we have some whites with some pinks or some purples. Even on the top, it has some like green undertones. And then further down, we have brown undertones, but it really is use of mostly just white. But we do see that lovely skin tone, and then we see their little rosy cheeks, which is totally deliberate because that is what is pulling us in. This is what I see is I'm looking at the mother's face and I see, okay, where's her eye line going? So her eyes are looking right at her child right here. And then we see, okay, well, let's point down and kind of follow our eye down to this baby's little elbow here, and that almost looks like an arrow itself. And then we follow that down to her leg, further down, and then we see these toes that are pointing, her little toes are pointing straight up, and that guides our eye straight back up. So we kind of have this circular motion, and this is intentional. We don't just walk up to a canvas and take it all in. Artists use certain shapes and arrangements to move our eyes around in a very distinct manner. So now that we kind of understand symbols a little bit, we understand elements a little bit, I want to talk about symbols. So these are little tricks to kind of look impressive, but yes, they are minimum effort for maximum coolness. I don't know if you guys think it's cool, but I think it is. So we have ancient sculpture. So I want you guys, next time you're in a museum, to look closely at a sculpture. So this is an example of a Greek sculpture. Now, not that many have survived of like marble and the stones, so this is bronze. But I want you to look at his feet. Not that much of the sculpture is actually touching the podium. We only have his back few toes and his one full foot. But when we go back over to Roman in the future, so looking at Augustus Caesar's feet, he has 2 feet planted, and then he has this tiny little angel, which in art history we call a putti, P-U-T-T-I, and that gives the artist more of a base to put the weight. So it's not all balancing. It really does, these are stone, these are heavy. And so we see also over in Artemis that she also has a little doe under her. So that is the artist's ability to transfer weight. So where is it going? Can it stand the test of time? And that's why so many of the Greeks have it. But we do have Greek sculptures that were copied by Romans. But the Romans, obviously as talented as they are, were not as adept as the Greeks in their sculpture and being able to balance. So even if you look near Artemis, right under the animal, you almost see it almost looks like a tree trunk. It's not a tree trunk. It is just a way of being able to displace that weight. So that's your little first tip, is Greek versus Roman. How much is touching the podium? Next, it would behoove you to know some saints. Now we have Giotto. This is his painting of St. Francis. So he is receiving the stigmata, which are holes in his hands and feet, just like Jesus had. So anytime you see someone with holes in their hands mostly, it's usually St. Francis. Next, we have St. Jerome. St. Jerome is always shown with his lion. So if you see someone that looks like a monk, looks like a saint, but he has a lion, it's always St. Jerome. And finally, we have St. Sebastian, who sadly he is always shown with arrows in his body. This is actually a pretty tame one. You get up into the Northern Renaissance and like Germany, they get kind of gory, but I even got my brother to memorize this one, so we would go into a museum and he'd be like, hey look, it's a guy with arrows in him. I'm like, you know who it is, it's St. Sebastian. So next would be animals. So in this painting, this is Van Eyck's portrait. So this is actually a wedding portrait. I know, that's kind of off the wall and everyone thinks she's pregnant. She's not. This is actually during the Middle Ages when women were sought after for being fertile. So there was a decline, obviously, in the population during this time. So the women that could look as if they could bear children, and if they might be bearing children right now, were more popular. So if you look down below, we see a little dog right there. So this is a good thing to have in your wedding portrait. Dogs in art history are shown as faithful, loyal. Those are the symbols, those are the traits that they embody. So when you see that, a dog in a wedding portrait, it means usually these people are planning on having a good marriage or already do have a good marriage. But cats and monkeys, they're the exact opposite. So we see here in Guido Reni's Abduction of Helen, down below, if you look, we can see a dog and another little bitty creature. So that one is actually a monkey. So I don't know if you guys have been in classical art history or classical history courses in a while, but this is Paris right in the middle with his fluffy little white hat. And he is abducting Helen, who she is married to Menelaus. So she's already married and she is leaving with him. So we do see this confrontation quite vividly that Guido Reni has showed us of this dog of fidelity is coming and looking straight in the eye of this. It kind of does look like a cat, but it is a monkey. Let's give him some credit. He was from Italy. It's coming against him and saying like, hey, like, which one are you going to choose here? And I feel like Helen lining up right with the monkey makes her look like she's made her choice. He has stacked those two images right on top of each other purposefully. So animals in art history, if it's a dog, it's faithful. If it's a cat or a monkey, it's the opposite. So I truly hope that this has made the entire subject of art history a little less intimidating and you can navigate museums with some tools in your belt, because there's always meaning infused into art. And I want you to know where to look and also how to articulate it when you do find it. I would also like to end with a quote. This is Claude Monet. He says, "Everyone discusses my art and pretends to understand as if it were necessary to understand, when it is simply necessary to love." So yes, you can study it, you can understand it, but at the end, the enduring appeal of art is that you love it. So I hope that I was able to instill maybe just a little bit of that in you today. Thank you.